right, this is the practice problem video for 7.3, solving multi-step inequalities. So I'm just going to walk you through a few of these answers so you know how to get started. Number one is pretty straightforward. There's a little wrinkle in number two, so I'm going to start with number two. Just remember, we want to solve inequalities the same way we solve equations. You know, what we do to one side, we got to do to the other, and we're going to use inverse operations to isolate the variable and all that. So if I want to get this negative 8v by itself, I need to get rid of that negative 3. So I do so by doing the inverse operation and adding 3. If I do it to one side, I have to do it to the other side. On the left side, that cancels out. I'm left with negative 8v is greater than or equal to negative 8. And now I want to get the coefficient in front of v, or the number in front of the variable, equal to positive 1. So we do so by dividing by the same coefficient. If I do it to one side, got to do it to the other. So I'm left with 1v is, now here's the tricky part. Remember, if we divide by a negative, okay, so here's where dividing by a negative to solve. So we must switch the sign, or flip the sign, whatever you want to call it. So now it's going to be v is less than or equal to, and we get negative 8 over negative 8, that is positive 1. All right, now we can just graph this out. So let's just go 0, 1, 2, 3. Circle the number that we're comparing, determine if it's opened or closed. Remember, the only thing that determines that is whether or not that line is underneath or not. It is there, so that means it includes 1, so it is a closed circle. All right, and the mouth is eating the 1. That means the variable is smaller. Smaller numbers go to the left. All right, you guys can do 1. You can do number 3. Just remember, we want to distribute this 7 first. Be 7r and then 7 times negative 3, and you can finish that one out. Number 4, we have variables on both sides, so we want to pick a side for the variables. I always like to try to get rid of the smaller of the two coefficients. So we have negative 2 and negative 3. Negative 3 is smaller, so I'm going to try to get rid of that one. All right, the reason why then I'm going to be left with a positive coefficient. It's just going to be easier to deal with. So if I add 3m's on this side, I have to add 3m's over here as well. All right, so I'm left with 4 plus negative 2m plus 3m is 1m is greater than 7. And now I want to get the variable by itself, so I need to get rid of that 4. It's a positive 4, so I'm going to subtract it. Subtract on one side, I need to do it to the other side. So I'm left with m is greater than 3. And we can go ahead and plot this out. 3, 4, 5. Circle the number that we're comparing, determine if it's open or closed. It is open because we don't have the line underneath. And the mouth is eating the variable. That means the variable is bigger. Bigger numbers go to the right. All right, moving on. Number 5 looks pretty straightforward, but just keep in mind we're might have to flip a sign there possibly. Number 6, there's fractions. I know you guys probably don't want to deal with this one, so I'll go ahead and do this one for you. I'm going to get the variable on the left side, so I'm going to subtract 1/3 d over on the right side. Do it to one side, got to do it to the other side. All right, so now I'm left with 2/3 minus 1/3 is 1/3 d minus 2 is less than 8. And I want to get the variable term by itself, so I'm going to get rid of this negative 2. I do so by doing the inverse operation and adding 2 on both sides. All right, so I'm left with 1/3 d is less than 10. All right, and so now I want to get rid of this, or I want to get the coefficient in front of d equal to 1. So we always said we divide by whatever is in front of d. But if we divide by a fraction, we are really just multiplying by the reciprocal, okay? So those would cancel out, and I would just be left with d. And if you do it to one side, you got to do it to the other side. So we're left with d is less than 30. So I'll let you guys plot that one out. Number 7, describe and correct the error. So here we go. Here's the start of the problem. So it looks like they subtracted 17 on both sides. That looks right. And then divided by -3. So it looks like the mistake here is that they divided by a -3 to solve, but they did not switch the sign. There's the error there. All right, 8, 9, and 10, solve the inequality if possible. These are going to be unique ones. They're either going to be all solutions or no solutions, but I want you to show the work. I'll do one of these for you. So if we notice here, we combine like terms on the right side of the inequality. 2p plus p is 3p, so I'm left with 3p minus 5 is greater than 3p minus 7. Right, and if I were to try to get the p's on one side, I'd have to subtract out one set of p's, right? All right, and actually it's going to cancel out on both sides. So what you're left with, and so you want to make sure that you get rid of the variables or try to get the variables on one side first. And you got to make sure that what you have, either it makes sense, or it's a true statement, or it doesn't, or it isn't, okay? So this is saying that -5 is greater than -7. Is that true? Is -5 a bigger number than -7? Yes, it is. So if that's the case, this is infinite solutions or all solutions. I'm going to go with infinite solutions. Okay, if you got something that didn't make sense, if this was -5 is less than -7, well, then it would be no solution, right? Because -5 is bigger than -7. It's not smaller. So, all right, you guys can do 9 and 10. Number 11, translate the verbal phrase and then solve it. So how about I translate this and then you guys solve it? 4 more than the product and x is less than 40. Okay, so product means multiply, for more than, have addition in there, and is less than. So there's going to be, this is less than 40. So this is just going to be uh, the product of 3 and x. So this is 3x plus 4 is less than 40. Okay, and you guys can solve that out. And last few problems here. I'm going to leave these last 4 to you. These should be pretty straightforward, like the first 4 that we had. Just slightly bigger numbers, but they should be totally fine. Just use your calculator. If you still need help after watching this video, Google Meet with me or have your advisor give me a call and I'll stop down at your classroom. All right, good luck.